go! Here we go! Here we go!
We're gonna have a fiery Sterling today.
Well, no, you just have a big old air horn, and anytime a Packers fan tries to talk, you just hit the button and drown them out. Like, no, I can't hear you. Go Bears.
It's basically the la 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 la.
Yeah, exactly. Right? You don't even have to live there. You can do it from here. Just remote control everything. Yeah, I'm pissed off, man. Fuck the NFL at this point.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the OneIQ Football Talk podcast. Brendan and Sterling coming at you for week 4 in the NFL. But first off, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing good, man. You know, it's end of September. We got football. The weather's nice. You know, my Steelers are 3-0. Bengals are 0-3. Life is great.
Yeah. Must be nice.
It is
nice.
I was expecting it to be the other way around. I thought the Steelers were gonna have a rough time this year. It's been fun.
Yeah, you and I have kind of talked about this a little bit, where both of us kind of think the Steelers are kind of on that little bit of fraud watch at the moment, because again, you look at the Falcons. No one really knew what the Falcons were going to be week 1, especially with Kirk Cousins. You then went up against the Denver Broncos, which again, Broncos were what they were. The Chargers, even though they had a good start to the year, the Chargers still weren't great, and Justin Herbert was hurt. You're going up against the Colts, who arguably have the worst defense in the league, and Anthony Richardson is looking like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league right now. Then you go up against the Cowboys and the Raiders. So this Steelers team might be 6-0 by the time they get to the Jets, and then they still have 2 more easy winnable games after the Jets, where you have the Commanders and the Giants also in there. So we could be going into trade deadline week where the Steelers are 8-1.
Yep. This is what we said they had to do, though, because remember that back half of the schedule, they have the hardest back half of the schedule in the NFL of any team.
Yep.
And so we said, if they want a shot at making the playoffs, they got to win
basically
6 to
everything.
8 games in their first 9 games.
Yep.
Like, they have to, and it bodes well that typically within their division, they do very well. Like last season with a worse team than what we have now, they were still 5-1 within the division. And so if you correlate that and you transfer that over, we'll give them 1 extra loss in there. So they go 4-2 within the division. So already that's them sitting at 7-2. You know what I mean? So there are real possibilities of making the playoffs. This team has to keep improving offensively to be a true threat in this league, though. And yeah, they are on fraud watch. It's the 2 primetime games they got coming up in the next 4 weeks are key. Cowboys, Jets. You play both of them on Sunday night. Those are both big, important games. You have to win those to show that you're a true threat in this league. And if they do, I think at that point, teams have to start looking at Pittsburgh and going, okay, these guys could be a team that'll make a run in the playoffs if they can win those 2 games. Admittedly, that Cowboys game is a little less important at this point because that Cowboys defense is looking pretty suspect.
They're also
Michael
pretty hurt at the
Parsons
moment.
Went down on Thursday with a high ankle sprain, and we've seen high ankle sprains for defensive players. That's usually in the 2 to 6 week range. So we don't know if he'll even be playing against the Steelers when that happens next Sunday.
Well, yeah, DeMarcus Ware is also likely going to potentially be out in that one as well. They lost both of their top edge rushers.
That's good for the Steelers in terms of their record. It's not as good for the Steelers in terms of testing their mettle.
Yeah. I think right now the first proper real test that we're going to see from the Steelers is going to be that Monday or Sunday night game against the Jets, because again, like I said, you have the Cowboys after the Colts. if you watched our game prediction video, and even if when you're watching this right now on Monday morning or whenever you're watching this, I highly recommend go watch the game predicts video. We definitely got a little bit feisty with some of the things and some of the stuff we're talking about, but Cowboys, again, neither of us think that's much of a test, or it isn't going to be a proper test. With the Raiders, we don't know what we're getting with the Raiders. That's always going to be a tough battle, the black and white versus the black and yellow. Those are always tough games, but the Jets, that is your really first tough matchup, and that's a weird time to kind of get your first real proper test.
Yeah.
Going into week 7 of a season, because at that point, we already know what Steelers fans and what people in the Steelers organization are saying when they're just 3-0 right now and they really haven't been tested. It's going, oh, like we're this team, blah 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 blah, and it's like, okay, but like what's it going to be like when that test comes? And it's
and I mean, like we know the test is the offense. The offense needs to be tested.
100%.
And that's what it is. It's that Jets defense going up against that. That's going to be the key. We know the Steelers defense is the best right now.
Yep.
They've got an injury that they're dealing with. Hopefully it remains as only one injury for the time being, and hopefully it's not anything too long term.
Yep.
Beyond that, we said at the start of the season, if the defense stays healthy, they'll be able to keep this team in a lot of games. Is the offense going to be good enough to win those games that the defense keeps them in? And the Jets in week 7, that is going to be that true first test. Can they go up against that Jets D while still shutting down Aaron Rodgers and steal a win away? Which, crazy to say, steal a win from the Jets at home in prime time. Like, that's
it feels strange to say, but the other big important thing is Aaron Rodgers will now have 7, or at that point 6 games under his belt in the NFL, where every single week he's looked more and more comfortable. That game against the Patriots that he did in week 3 on Thursday Night Football, it was, oh, that looks like Percocets Aaron Rodgers again, back when he was playing on those. And I saw some funny jokes this week saying maybe he's back playing on those, because he looked so good. And it's just going to be really interesting to see. I do want to talk about, a little podcast that is by Cam Hayward that came out this week where they had Justin Fields on. And one of the questions that they asked where it was like, oh, Justin, who do you think has better coaching, the Steelers or the Bears? Like, I don't get annoyed with Justin Fields saying that the Steelers have better coaching, because at the end of the day, I think everyone knows that the Steelers have a better coach in Mike Tomlin than what the Bears had in Matt Eberflus, or what the offensive side. But I just look at Cam Hayward and go, like, what do you think he was supposed to say? Like what would
question.
Like, what would happen to the locker room if he goes, actually, I really loved Matt Eberflus and I think he was a better coach? Like, I'm sorry, you think any Steelers player on that team would show him any level of respect at that point? No. It's like, my dude, like, Cam, fuck you. Like, sure, if you want to ask about the questions of, oh, who was the better coaching that you got from when you were at Georgia or Columbus, that's fair questioning, because you're not going to be hurting anyone's feelings at that point. I don't think any Bears fan is hurt over the fact that you said the Steelers. No. But I'm just looking at Cam Hayward going like what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, you're putting him in an awkward situation.
Oh, and you know what, though? I don't think it was an awkward situation. I think he knew ahead of time that question was coming. That was very much a loaded question that was designed to endear him to Steelers fans. That was the goal there. That was the whole point. It's like, hey, we're going to bring you on, Justin, and we're going to, ask you some of these questions so that Steelers fans start to love you more and give you more of that love, because you're enjoying your time here and we want you to keep being happy and improving.
Yeah.
Because even the other question of, what was the most surprising thing in the locker room that you saw? And it was TJ Watt and how fired up he gets. It's like saying you've never seen that and you didn't expect that. That was a bullshit answer. It's like, we all know how explosive and how passionate TJ Watt is. Everybody in the league knows that. Saying you didn't know that, it was a silly answer. So yeah, I didn't expect that to anger Bears fans. You know, anybody who was posting it to try and anger Bears fans, it was just clickbait
Yeah.
at that point. That podcast is purely meant to just fire up and
It's
inspire
getting
Steelers
him to
fans.
endure, like what you said, him to the Steelers fans. And the other reason why I bring this up is because there has been a lot of Justin Fields truthers that were Bears fans and, you know, Steelers fans at this point that are basically like looking at the Bears going, bet you wish you never traded this guy. And I just continue to sit back and I go, I'm pretty happy with the guy that we just traded for, because the guy that we traded for, or we got and traded Fields away for, he has shown more improvements, and I'm talking about Caleb Williams. He's shown more improvements as a quarterback and as a passer in the NFL over the course of 3 weeks than Justin Fields did over the course of 3 years with the Bears.
Oh, yeah.
And I will say this, Fields, he looks much improved this year. He does. Look, his process, which is the biggest thing that we had worrisome for him, it looks like that has sped up. But again, we've talked about some of the teams that he's gone up against and when it kind of goes down. And we haven't really seen the Steelers have to rely on Fields in the fourth quarter. And that was the biggest problem for Justin Fields, is when he needed to be relied upon in the fourth quarter is when he struggled. We haven't seen that from the Steelers yet. We know it's going to come at some point this year.
It will, and I mean, to be honest, it likely won't go very well. You know, outside of Ben Roethlisberger, it never goes well when that is the case. This Steelers team is built so that they're not relying on the quarterback in the fourth quarter. They're relying on the defense in the fourth quarter. That is how this team is built and how it's structured. And that's always the goal with every game. The goal is always to just do enough so that it's the other quarterback in the fourth quarter that's trying to win the game, because we're confident that 9 times out of 10, our defense will win that fight.
Yeah. And that's kind of been what they've been running off of this entire year, and it's been working. It's kind of what they've run off of the last 2 seasons, and it's probably, let's be honest, it's kind of been what they've been banking on the last 5 years.
I mean, many years. It's been probably beyond 5. You know, it wasn't noticeable during Ben's prime because he was able to do so much more. You know, at that time it was like, oh, well, Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, and like they can put up 35, 40 points a game. So it's not as big of a deal at that point in time. But ultimately, it's always been a defense first team, and let's build it so that if it's a close game, it's the other quarterback that's making the mistake at the end. Totally. Always been the goal of Mike Tomlin's teams.
Yeah, and I mean, it works. It really does. Just some news. Jordan Love is expected to return to the lineup against the Vikings this week. Again, if you watched our game preview, you know why neither of us necessarily think that is the wisest idea, but we won't jump into that. If you want to know kind of our feelings on that one, again, it could be completely wrong. This is coming out on Monday morning, so yeah, we're recording this on Saturday afternoon. But one of the other things in our game picks video that I kind of talked about and almost teased a little bit was my thoughts on how I think this Bears offense can be fixed. And it goes back to what we've seen Sean McVay do so unbelievably well for years and years and years and years. And that is simply using your guys at what they're good at. And the Bears just simply need to start doing more of that. It almost seems like the biggest frustration that I've had with a lot of the previous offensive-minded guys, you know, going back to Luke Getsy and then even with Matt Nagy, was they never took their ego out of it, and it was always, you are running my system, and if you can't run my system, you're a bad player. And it was almost like taking the square hole and trying to shove, or the square piece and trying to shove it through a circle piece. You're like, that stuff just doesn't, like, it might be good for a season, maybe 2. You might get lucky with that, but you need to go off of what your players are good at. Especially, like, if you don't have a top 3 quarterback in the league, you can't really play that type of game. And with Shane Waldron, what we've seen these first 3 weeks is him not really utilize a bunch of these guys to the way that they ultimately should be used. And the other problem that I have with this is that after week 2, you saw how bad that offensive line was. And you needed to get the running game going. And you were going up against the worst team in the league at stopping the run, and you still couldn't get it going. And there was play after play where you're going, why would you do this? Like, the most annoying thing for me is that I look at this and I go, you are running the ball a lot out of shotgun. And you, from just playing me in Madden and knowing how I like to run offenses, you know I don't love running the ball out of shotgun. The reason why I don't like doing it, and I prefer to always have the ball being under center, and that's where you hand the ball off, is because you can do so much more with it. Play action, people go, oh, well, you can do RPO out of the shotgun. Yeah, but it's a lot easier to cover that way. With the simple play action handoff under center, that opens up so much more, and you can start to play 12 personnel. And that's what I think the Bears should be trying to focus on, is going to that 12 personnel. If you don't know what 12 personnel means, it's 1 running back and 2 tight ends onto the field. And Cole Kmet is he's a top 10 tight end, close and getting closer and closer to being a top 5 tight end, because he's an excellent blocker and he's an excellent catcher of the football when he's given the ball. We saw that last week when he's targeted. He's very effective and he's very dangerous. You have that, and then you also have Mercedes Lewis, who has slowly turned into one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. You just allow that to happen, because what happens when you have those 12 personnel, you have 1 tight end on either side, you can have a strong run game up the middle, so playing inside zone or inside power, whatever you want to call it. Then you can also allow to have outside runs. I'm not the world's biggest outside run guy. I prefer to keep it within the tackles, but that opens up a lot more. And with Keenan Allen still being banged up, I don't know if he's going to play this week. We saw what Rome Odunze was capable of doing, and like he's that type of guy. And DJ Moore's still very, very good and still one of the best receivers in the league. Needs to be targeted a little bit more, I think. But obviously Caleb wanted to get Rome a little bit more involved in the offense, and we saw what happened. But with that 12 personnel, you start to run the offense out of there. And the other beautiful thing with that for Caleb is he only gets a preview of what the defense is doing. So he can go to the line of scrimmage, he can see what the defense is giving him, and if it's a passing play, he can go, okay, I know my wide receiver is going to be this, this, and this. You snap the ball, you turn away from the defense, which I know a lot of people get really scared about. When they say, oh, you're taking your rookie quarterback and you're turning his back to the defense, that's really worrisome. I'm not worried about it with Caleb. We've seen that his processing speed is perfect for the NFL. He knows how to read the defense, and I think that ultimately takes a little bit of pressure away from him in that scenario of where he gets that initial pre-read and he snaps the ball and goes, okay, if it's a passing play and I'm doing play action, it's go, turn around, I go, okay, this guy's covered, I can immediately go to this side and choose this wide receiver. It makes it quick and easy. Caleb has already shown through the first 3 weeks of the season that he's one of the quickest quarterbacks from time of snap to ball getting out of his hands. That just helps that along, and it makes it so much easier. And I always say run the damn football. And that is a way you open up a lot more, and it helps make the offensive line job a little bit easier. Now, with this O-line, they still have a lot of problems. But my God, if you start playing more 12 personnel, just look at Sean McVay. When after Puka Nacua went down and after Cooper Kupp went down last week against the 49ers, what did Sean McVay run most of his offense out of? 12 personnel. And people sit back and go, well, how often does he do that? He doesn't do it often. You want to know how many times he ran out of 12 personnel last year? Less than 10%. He literally looked at this and said, the guys that we have on our team aren't capable of running the offense that I want to run. So I am going to scheme it up in a system of where the guys that we have are going to be able to open up and be able to be successful. The offensive line for the Rams is not good. It is not good all across the board.
Mhm.
12 personnel helped out, and they were able to go up and beat one of the best teams in the NFL. Like, I just sit back and I go, it's not hard. You just need to take your ego out of it when you're the offensive play caller and just take these lessons. And I hope Shane Waldron is looking at some of the stuff that Sean McVay has done and go, I learned from him. That's the tree that I'm technically from, and just takes that and runs with it, because this offense will be so much better if they start running it out of under center 12 personnel. It will be much more efficient.
Yeah, 100%. And it almost feels like they're preparing for failure by running it in the shotgun like that, because they're like, oh well, we know how bad this O line is. If we have him on the under center, by the time he turns and hands the ball off, we've got 3 guys in the backfield already. That's not a solution, going to the shotgun, because as you said, that our RPO, great, that's going to work twice a game maybe, and you're going to get picked off the third time you try it. RPO is not something you can rely on as a consistent game plan. You need to be back under center. And like you said, the turning your back on a play action, that doesn't worry me either. That's the whole point of watching game film through the week, is you see what defenses do, you see how they shift after a snap, and as a smart quarterback, which we know Caleb Williams is, he knows what 80% of those guys are going to do as his back is turned. So it's not a concern going through his progressions. The concern is there's 3 guys coming at him by the time he turns back around after the play action. And you're right. They got to get this run game going. Right now, Swift is averaging 1.8 yards per carry. That is not good enough. I don't know if it's because of the schemes or because they need to shift to Roshan Johnson or Khalil Herbert or what, but the run game right now is not working. What you say is right. Going to the 12 personnel makes sense, because now instead of 5 blockers, you have 7. You have 7 guys to open up holes instead of only 5. And 2 of the better tight ends that can do that. And I know you don't like running it outside, but maybe that is a bit of a solution, because you've got the tight end and the tackle that can shift over, and then you can pull that guard to the other side to open up the holes on whether it be the right or left side. Either way you can go. And you can still run up the middle as well. So it is like, if they can't get the running game going, then they're not going to see success, because sure, Caleb Williams can throw it for 350, 360 yards, a couple touchdowns a game,
Bro,
but
52 times a game.
right? Exactly. 52 times a game. And you're not using enough possession time, so your defense starts getting tired and the other team can wear you down, and then it's just you're playing from behind all game because of that. They need to figure out something with the run game. And I think one of the biggest issues in Chicago is there's a consistent history that's been happening with draft a quarterback, fire the head coach, start fresh, and things get shuffled. And so what we're seeing, it almost feels like, instead of Matt Eberflus buying in and going, I need to make sure I am coaching, and making sure Shane Waldron is utilizing Caleb's abilities and all the weapons we have, use their abilities appropriately. It's like they're going in and going, okay, this is what we have to do to beat them. And so you guys have to play this game because we need the win. We need to win so I don't get fired. That is what the mindset feels like. It's, we need to win so I don't get fired. It's not, we need to perform in a way that develops this quarterback so he can be the number 1 quarterback in this league 3 years from now.
Yeah.
That is what has to be happening, and it's not. It feels like it's self-preservation as opposed to coaching and growth.
Yep. And Caleb Williams said this week, they asked him, what are some of the things that you want to see from the offense? He says, maybe we need to start doing more things that the entire offense is really comfortable with, as opposed to what we think can beat the opponent. And right there, when I heard that on Wednesday afternoon, I immediately was like, yes. And Shane Waldron on Thursday was asked, and he said, yeah, I've had a lot of guys come up to me and asking for this, and this, and we've had discussions. and hasn't really, he answered questions without answering questions, which is, again, I understand coaches kind of have to be that way, but it also annoys the shit out of me of going,
Yep.
you're speaking, but you're not actually saying anything.
Yeah,
And
just dodging the questions essentially.
yeah, and for me right now, if you just go to a system of where you know plays that work with your offense, again, it doesn't need to be 12 personnel. I understand that, you know, you can't run 12 personnel 100% of the time. You need to go with different formations, this, that, and that. But like that's a base offense that I think this Bears team should be running. But if you have plays that work in 11 personnel, in, you know, 24, or, you know, other personnels, it's something along those lines of where you, if it's comfortable and the players know what to do on this play and it's just right then and there, you go with that. That just simply goes back to do what your players do well.
Exactly. Like,
It's such a simple concept.
Yeah, I understand building a game plan to beat the other team. Like, I get that. That's what you got to do. But ultimately, in the end, you need to play to your strengths as opposed to playing to their weaknesses.
Yeah.
Because what a team's going to do each week is they're going to focus on where they're weak and try to improve that. So playing to their weakness doesn't help you. Playing to your strengths only improves your team week in and week out because they get better and better at the things they're already good at.
Yeah.
As opposed to getting better at the things that that team is bad at. And then next week, oh, okay, this team has a whole different set of flaws. So we're learning a whole new setup. Like, no, you need to have something that you can run week after week after week that you can be confident will be successful no matter who you're playing against. Will it get you the W every time? Maybe not. Will it grow your players and their development each week? Yes. And a team like this right now, that is the most important thing, is growth and development for the Bears, not making sure you win 9 games this year, 10 games this year so you can keep your job.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you just simply go back to the teams that have always been successful. Like, look at the Chiefs. And we, you know, in this conversation, it's not the Chiefs going out every single week and saying, oh, we need to do this to beat this team. It's going, we're going to do out and do exactly what we do. And if the other team doesn't make that adjustments to go out and beat us, that's the difference. Again, we never talk about the Chiefs looking at the Ravens going, oh, they need to do this to beat the Ravens because this is where the Ravens are weak. We go, the Chiefs are going to do what the Chiefs do because they do what works. And they might not win every single game. There's going to be weeks where it's this, and that. But when you have that type of philosophy, you see it win. It's what worked with the Patriots for years. It's what worked for the Cowboys back in the 80s. We see it working for the 49ers because at the end of the day, we always talk about scheme is what is winning those 49ers games because they are taking players like Brock Purdy, who I know people aren't necessarily as high on as maybe others. I'm pretty high on Brock Purdy, as everyone knows, but it is one of those things where you go with what works, and these are the guys, and those are the people that are successful, and it just annoys the hell out of me that the past 3 play callers for the Bears just don't have that figured out. Yeah. I have it figured out, and I'm sitting on my couch. Own division.
Look at the Lions. The Lions are the same way right now. They play to their strengths as opposed to what the other team is doing.
Well, look at the Packers. Look at the Vikings. All 3 of those teams are doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why they're seeing success while the Bears are still sort of treading water. It's unfortunate. It almost needed to be like a discussion where Ryan Poles sat down with Matt Eberflus at the beginning of the season and was like, look, as long as we see development and consistency with Caleb Williams, I'm not going to fire you if you only have 3 wins. And that's the concern, is a lot of people make that face, and then that's why Matt Eberflus goes, no, I need wins, because if I don't, I'm going to get fired.
The difference there with this is that you have to look at what the team did previously, and again, this is the really weird spot for the Bears, because they had a team that won 7 games last year. I would agree with you if he said, we want to see consistent development from Caleb Williams and the team. If you have only 7 wins this year, we're not going to worry about it. Because
Yeah, the
Like,
number doesn't. I pulled a random number
yeah,
out. Like, I'm
I
not saying
the
it's
only thing that
3,
I'm
7,
worried
like,
about, like, if it was like 3 wins, that's a problem. That just shows the team isn't developing. It's actually getting worse from what it was last year. If the
yeah.
team stays completely consistent from what we saw last year, and we see growth from Caleb Williams, it's going
Mhm.
okay. That is okay because we haven't gone backwards. That's the only reason that I make the face.
Yeah, no, and that's why I say it needs to be like behind closed doors meeting where nobody hears what's heard, because I feel like Ryan Poles needed to say a lower number so that Eberflus could be more comfortable with sticking with the program. Because yeah, saying, oh, if we win 7 games, like the Bears are gonna win 7 games. Like I I have no doubts there. Like it's going to be on par. But the problem is, you say 7 games, and they get to 7 games, but it's Matt Eberflus's way, and so we don't see the development. But he goes, "Hey, I won 7, so I'm safe." That's the issue. It's the key is the development of Caleb Williams and game planning in a way that you are playing to the strengths of Williams and Swift and Komet and DJ Moore and what that offensive line is capable of.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, a lot of it feels like they're calling plays where this O line, each guy doesn't seem to know what they need to do on each play. That's why 3 of them end up on their butts
Yeah,
on a consistent basis. And it's just
and
it's not good.
And speaking of that offensive line, I look at this offensive line is basically the exact same from last year with the addition of Coleman Shelton to the center spot. Everything else is the exact same from the year before. This was one of the best run games last year. How can you go from being one of the best run games in the league to now being this bad? And that just simply goes to exactly what you're saying. It's going, the offensive linemen are going out there not knowing what they're supposed to do, and it looks that way. And sure, this offensive line, I said that at the beginning of the year. I never said this was going to be a top 10, top 15 offensive line. I just said it needs to be consistent. It needs to open up holes for the running backs, and it needs to give Caleb Williams 3 seconds, a minimum of 2.5 seconds. That's what they need to give him at minimum.
Mhm.
And if they can
But
do that, then the offense would be very successful. But
well,
again, they haven't
and
been able to
again,
do that.
it's not the passing that's the concern right now. It's that running. And this is something we talked about at the start of free agency when the Bears went out and made that big splash and signed DeAndre Swift. There was a lot of discussion of going, is this the right move? Is this a fraud signing? Because we saw what Swift was able to do with the Eagles, but that Eagles was set up and designed to play a game that very much went to Swift's strengths, which
Mhm.
is honestly a lot of swing passes, a lot of outside runs. He's not a ground and pound kind of guy. We saw him struggle with the Detroit Lions. That's why the Lions let him go.
That's why they
And
drafted
so the
Jahmyr Gibbs.
concern was, did they pay him all this money and bring him in to be a ground and pound guy, a physical pounding back like the Bears are used to, when that's not his style? And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing. You said 12 personnel. I think you balance that with a 2 running back set as well. You get Roshan Johnson and DeAndre Swift out there. You hand it off to Swift some of the times, but ultimately you hand it off to Johnson more, and you have Swift out there as a check down option. Somebody you can throw the ball to, whether it be in the flat, over the line, like just somewhere short, 3 to 5 yards away from Caleb Williams as a bailout option. That is the best way to be using Swift. Not handing it to him every play, expecting him to just go up the middle, because he's not going to succeed.
Yeah, I looked at when the Bears signed DeAndre Swift. I said this is going to be a very fun running back room because I looked at each of those guys and went, Roshan Johnson is probably the most well-rounded running back in the room. He is going to be your kind of default power back. He's going to be good in the pass blocking, and he can also catch the ball out of the backfield when you require him. Khalil Herbert, he is kind of your, he's not as fast as people think he is. It seems like people always go, oh, he's a really quick back, but he has a gear, but he can't take that gear beyond, so he often gets caught. But he's a guy that can run efficiently through holes and get yardage. Not a great pass blocker, not spectacular with the hands as well. But then you also look at DeAndre Swift and go, he's a really solid pass blocker, but he's phenomenal at catching the ball out of the backfield. And it was gonna be, I looked at this offense and went, you have all three guys that can do what you need them to do. And Roschon Johnson, he's going to be getting an extended look, is what the Bears have said this week, which thank God, because we need some form of change on this offensive line or from this running game. And I do believe Roschon Johnson is going to be that guy. Hell, we saw it when he rushed the ball last week. You just see a difference in him running up the middle as opposed to the other backs that we have on this team. And my goodness, man, it's just, I'm really happy that I'm calling a football game the same time the Bears are playing, because that means I only have to watch the recording of the game and I will know the final score by the time I start watching the game. And so I won't have to be disappointed with the outcome because I'll already know the outcome. And
Yeah.
again, like, people go, oh, we're spoiling it for yourself. I was like, I might as well not make myself angry and, super depressed. It's just
Yeah,
like,
I remember last week you were having a tough go of it. We were messaging, and you didn't even finish watching your game because you were so frustrated with the way it was going.
yeah, halfway through the third quarter, I just turned it off. And granted, I was still following play to play from it because, again, and I did watch the final few minutes of the game. It was just
Yeah.
that frustration of, I need to walk away, otherwise, some, bleepity bleep 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 would be said and happen, and it's just this team. And the only reason I get that way is because I know they can be better. And again, me just sitting here in my living room or in my podcast room, just simply going, I know how to get this done. And these guys that are professionals that are being paid millions of dollars. Now, granted, I don't know necessarily the best ways to scheme it or the play calling for the timing, this, that, and the other thing. I just know what I do in games works, and I see other coaches do things this way, and I go, take your goddamn ego out of the play calling and go with what the players do well. I said it for years with Bill Belichick. I said it with Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. They go with stuff that their players can do.
Yep.
Andy Reid, another great example of that. And it's just something where you like, I'm already mostly bald anyways, but pulling my hair out even more watching this team isn't helping this scenario.
Right. And I mean, another one of the underrated coaches that's showing he's really good at that, which must make you angry, is Matt LaFleur.
Oh, it annoys
like,
me,
he had
and
to
it's just so annoying. Watch, and like, I give him a ton of credit. Like I said this year, if there was 5 play callers, he would be number 6 for me. Because I do believe like there are a handful of guys that are better play callers, but god damn is he still massively up there. And as a Bears fan, I will always credit the Packers when they're doing good things the right way. I will never, like, I hate the Packers and I hate everything about their organization, but you better believe I will give them their flowers.
Yep. 100%, and it's frustrating to see that the Bears are still stuck in this endless cycle of just the coaches trying to preserve their own jobs as opposed to developing the quarterback that you took in order to build a franchise.
Yeah, and you and I kind of had this discussion a little bit this week where I said I would be more than comfortable having Matt Eberflus be gone at the end of the year, and then you said, well, if the Bears would just be doing that exact same thing that they've always done. I went, if the Bears keep Matt Eberflus this year and move on from Shane Waldron, then they're doing that exact same thing anyways, so you might as well do what I said the process should have been done last year. Or I said, you know what? Yeah, Matt Eberflus might have built a really solid culture for that team to have, but the bigger issue there is you don't have someone who's going to develop the offense the way that it should be. And if you have a situation like we're in right now, then you're just going back to that same recipe when you could have had it last year and you could have changed some things. And yeah, you could have had Jim Harbaugh. You could have had the meatball. You could have had the meatball.
That is the biggest thing, is it should have happened before the draft this year. Is it should have been a clear house get rid of Eberflus, start completely fresh this year, so that you didn't run into the issue of maybe it happens next year.
Yeah.
If there was any mistake that Ryan Poles has made, that is it.
Yeah, and again, there's also other issues of where you look at there was 6 guys that the Bears interviewed for their offensive coordinator spot, and every single one of those guys is doing drastically better. You interviewed Cliff Kingsbury, which was my number one choice. I thought if you're gonna draft Caleb Williams, you might as well bring in the offensive minded guy who was with him at USC last year, and that would have just made that transition even easier. You have Clint Kubiak, who is now with the Saints, who's making Derek Carr and that offense look very good. I don't remember the full list, but it's just one of those things you just go down and you're like, man, like it's just depressing how you made this choice over some of these other guys. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I get you. It's tough, and what a lot of Bears fans were hoping for a slightly quicker improvement process is rapidly dragging out to what could become a painful improvement process.
And it
When you were
never had to be that way.
it shouldn't have. It was something that you could have looked at and gone, okay, 2 to 3 years, we could be one of the tops. And with the way things are happening right now, it's looking more like it could be, it might be 5th-year option before we truly see things come together for Caleb Williams and the Bears, and that is not good. So I hope they can turn that around and find their identity, because that's what it is. It's like Matt Eberflus is trying to impose his will and his identity on this team when that is not what the skill set of the players demands.
Yeah, pretty much my one hope for this team is something that I know will never happen, but I actually kind of like hope that the Bears just simply go out there and do, of where they say, listen, Eberflus, you are no longer the head coach. We're gonna hire, Bobby Slowick, and he's also not gonna be the head coach. We're just gonna have 2 head coaches. It's gonna be, this is the defense, this is the offense. Make it the 85 Bears again, where it was, Mike Ditka was the head coach, but Buddy Ryan was also the head coach of the defense. Because again, I think Eberflus has a great philosophy for the team, and that's great. And like I say this about every defensive head coach, they bring in great culture, this and that, but at the end of the day, the offense, you just see struggles, and we see it with Mike Tomlin. We really do see it with Mike Tomlin as well. He's a great coach. He's a great culture builder. And he was lucky enough when he got hired, he had a Hall of Fame quarterback playing for him. And it's just one of those things you just go, like, we're seeing the offense not be good, but the culture is there. And it's just, it's just so infuriating.
It is. And that's what's tough for the Bears, because they don't even have that head coach culture set up at the moment. And this is a fun discussion, and we had this talk early in the off season during the dead zone there. So if you're interested to hear our takes on how coaching philosophy should be done and how the coaching should be hired, please go back and watch that, because that was an entertaining video where we talked about some coordinators are not meant to be head coaches. In the same way that some head coaches should never be a coordinator. You mentioned Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is an excellent head coach. I would never want him as a defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Because he's just so much better at bringing everything together. And that the league has gotten away from that, where you've got guys like your Mike Ditkas, your Mike Tomlins, your Bill Cowers, where they are just
good. They're the CEO head coach.
Yeah, they are the head coach.
Yeah.
They are there to not only coach the players and things like that, but they're there to coach the coaches.
Yep.
To coach the coordinators, to get everybody on the same page. And then you've got these guys that are really good at scheming up plays and getting guys together. Like Matt Eberflus is a great defensive coordinator. He's really good at the defense. He's not good at leading other coaches. That is the problem. It's like having a lead supervisor and a manager. The supervisors don't work really well as managers, but a manager just sort of gets lost when he's trying to just supervise a section. It's the same sort of thing, you know. I've seen Mike Tomlin talk about it, where he loves to see coaches that resist coaching, because ultimately you need to not just be focusing on your players, you need to coach your staff
Yeah.
as well. You need to make sure you're instilling the same beliefs and the same ideas in everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then your coordinators are there to build that game plan for the offense or the defense, whatever it is. And yeah, like you said, that's what I want for Pittsburgh as well. We've got a good DC that can scheme all that up and get things going there. It's, can we get a guy who is, you know, being talked about maybe being a head coach, but he's so good as an offensive coordinator? Just come be the OC. And I think the solution, as I said back there in the summer, is maybe these OCs need to be start getting paid a little bit more, closer to that head coach money, so that they're inspired to go, okay, well,
We're seeing that with
yeah,
Ben Johnson and Bobby Slowick.
right? Exactly. I don't have the title of head coach, but I'm getting paid enough so that I'm not tempted to go become a head coach somewhere, and I can still focus on my craft, which is building a playbook, scheming things up, and teaching my players how to run specific formats.
Yeah, it's, you and I both agree that the best way to be a coach is the CEO archetype. It's just, the problem is we just don't see that anymore in the NFL. So that's why I lean so heavily to the offensive minded guys, because if you have a Sean McVay or a Kyle Shanahan, yeah, they might not necessarily be the CEO type, because they're definitely so focused on the offense and they basically just let their defensive coordinator do what they need to do. At least you have consistency with the offense, which again, in the NFL, it's an offensive game. That's what you need. You need to have a good offense. You need to score more points than the other team. I hate that phrase, but at the end of the day, it is one of the best phrases to say. If you score more points than your opponent, you are always gonna win. And it's such a dumb phrase, but it works so well in this context.
Oh, there's so many of them. You know,
Yeah.
like defense wins championships. I hate it, but I believe in it. You know, and that's just it. Like, your defense will get you to the playoffs. And if you can get to the Super Bowl, your defense can win you that Super Bowl. The problem is, wild card divisional conference championship week, if your offense can't score points, you're not even getting to the Super Bowl. That is the issue the Steelers have had for so long.
Yep.
Our defense gets us to the playoffs. Our offense isn't good enough to get us through the playoffs to the big game.
Well, this is how I think this ultimately works. And sorry for cutting you off, but I think this is how it works. I think offense gets you to the playoffs, and then you need a combination of your defense and your offense to both be playing in tandem to win you a Super Bowl. Because again, we look at the Chiefs a few years ago, where they won the first out of the two that they have, where it was, the defense wasn't great for that most of that year, and then they got to the playoffs and it was, oh wait, this defense is really good. And then last year it was, this defense is still pretty good, but the offense is also still really good because of, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And then once you got to the playoffs, it was, okay, this defense is allowing this team to go over, because it's not like the Chiefs were spectacular in the Super Bowl. Their defense really did a lot of work there. So yeah, that phrase of defense wins you championships, but offense gets you there.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, you can have defensive teams that'll get you to the playoffs, but you're not going to get through that playoff stretch
if you don't have an offense.
With the offense. Yeah. And that's ultimately what's been Pittsburgh's problem. That's why we don't win once we get to the playoffs, because you got to be able to put up 25, 30 points in that divisional round or that conference round. At least one of those games, you're going to have to be able to do that. And if you can't on offense, then you're not even going to get to the big dance for the opportunity for your defense to shine and try and shut down a team to win you a championship.
Yeah, to win a Super Bowl in this league, you need to have both a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. And if you have one or the other, you're not going to win. Again, years ago when we saw our Mahomes lose to the Bucks in the Super Bowl. Again, they had the Chiefs had a top 10 offense, but they didn't have a top 10 defense. And they didn't have that great of an offensive line that year, but when you still have Mahomes, Kelsey, and Hill, and I still think they had McCole Hardman on his rookie year that year, and it was just like, yeah, you had a top 10 offense, but the defense and the old line was the problem. But yeah, I think we have kind of done ranting enough, unless you have anything else that you would like to bring on. Again, our podcasts are definitely going to be getting a little bit shorter week to week. There could be weeks where it's a little bit longer than an hour. Could be weeks where it's like this, where it's closer to that 50-minute mark, just because we're adding and spreading out a lot more of the content throughout the week for you guys. But for Sterling, I'm Brendan, saying thank you all very much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, as it really helps out. But till next time, peace.